Hi guys, this is Andrew, and today we have Miss Mary Aviles with us, and I want to kind of talk about her journey from where she started, right? So we're going to call this zero. I was going to say zero to a hero, but it's more from a zero to exactly at 4,000 net cash flow, right? 4,000 per month. Your journey, kind of where you started from, where you are today, and how has the mindset changed, and the learning lessons. That's really what I want, is specific takeaways, Mary. So number one, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm very excited to be here.
Okay, so my question is this, Mary, kind of how did you come about us? Were you listening to the show? Did you come to the Chicago RIA? How did that whole thing come about?
I actually found you guys on Meetup, and I started coming to the monthly meetings of the local Tinley Park monthly meetings.
Okay, monthly park, the meetup meetings, right? Okay.
Yes.
So from there, what was your impression initially when you came to the meetup, right? Because there's a lot of real estate groups locally or in any part of the country, I guess. What was your first impression after the meeting, and what was your impression before the meeting?
So before the meeting, honestly, I hadn't heard of you. I just knew that I wanted to get into real estate more heavily. So I did a little bit of research. I looked at on the meetup, and the Chicago RIA had the most members. So I thought, okay, wow, if they have the most members, that means something is going on here.
Got it.
So I went to the first meeting, and I wasn't sure what to expect, other than I was like, oh gosh, these guys are going to try to sell me something just like everybody tries to do.
Got it.
After the meeting, I was just blown away. I was like, wow, not only did they not try to sell me anything, there was so much valuable information.
Right.
So that got me hooked after the first
meeting.
So it was content.
Right.
It's just
Which
free
was
content.
overload.
Right.
Right. So where were you in terms of, because rather than going, oh my God, everything worked, right? I want specifically to talk about, because I think a lot of people, I guess I want to go back a little bit.
Sure.
What do you do for a living?
So I actually work in the corporate world. I have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job.
Okay. Full-time for corporate job.
Right.
Right. And without getting into specific salaries and all that kind of stuff, would you say you make a six-figure salary?
Not even close.
Not even close.
Not even
right?
close.
And I wanted to, and I know it's a very personal matter,
right.
and I wanted to bring this up because sometimes what happens is people will get this impression, oh my God, this person is successful in real estate, they must make a lot of money. And I would say you're right in the very, very middle bracket.
Absolutely.
Right? In terms of, you have a good education, right? You have a lot of background in terms of corporate experience, right? But you've been working in a kind of that non-for-profit world, where the salaries are not that high. I mean, let's just be honest here.
It's very much in the middle ranges.
Right? Very much in the middle ranges. And sometimes people are like, probably wonder why I get into this, because I want people to understand that this is not based on, oh my God, I was making so much money, now I'm making so much money in real estate. This is average people, right?
The whole point of getting into this is because you're not making a lot of money, you want to get obviously increase your income.
Okay, got it. So at that point, I know before I kind of jump forward, right, what was the driving force behind you coming to your... Okay, so let me ask you this. How far away are you from retirement age?
In terms of years?
In terms of years.
25 years away.
25 years away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that 25 is a key number. I want listeners, as they listen to this, to come back to this number in the end, right? Because that's going to be significant in our kind of, as we go through this whole, your story of becoming a true real estate investor. So before you met us, you had done some real estate.
I did.
Right?
I actually owned 4 rental properties.
You owned 4 rental properties.
I did.
So why not just keep going down that path that you already had? Why make a switch?
Because I had come to a dead end. I was buying houses, but I had so much money stuck in them, and I was cash flowing so little, I was done. I just couldn't buy any more properties.
Okay, got it. So you couldn't buy any more properties at that point, right? All your cash flow was stuck. And what kind of cash flow were you getting?
Very, very little. If you take some a little bit more, some a little bit less, but between the 4 properties, I was cash flowing about $400 total. That's total
$400 cash flow
among the
in
4 properties.
Okay, got it. So now I know from that point to today, significant change, right? But here's what I want to follow through is that the position that you were in financially, even at that time, by most standards, right? By most standards, you would have been considered a success. You do realize that, right?
I thought I was being a success. I was one of the few people who was actually investing in real estate, so I thought I was doing pretty well.
Okay, until
I met you.
Until you got, because see, for people around our way of thinking, right? I mean, forget about Main Street, right? There, unless you have like 10, 20 properties, you don't even show up on our scale. Not that we don't, because see, my belief is this. In most groups, what they do is they want to lower the bar to the lowest common denominator. Our belief is this. We want to raise the bar to the highest common denominator.
Absolutely.
Right? And what our goal is, not that we want to celebrate your success, but what our goal is this. Miss Mary, if you're at 5, why not 10? Because if you have the ability to do 10, then doing 7 is an injustice to you and your family. Right? So let's go back. So you were at, you said 4 houses, $400 total cash flow.
Total cash flow.
Right? And how much money did you have tied up? I mean, you didn't have a lot of money to begin with to tie up, but whatever little you had, you did tie it up.
I had all of the money tied up. That was it. I didn't really have a penny left after tying it all up in the properties.
Okay, got it. So what was the mind shift? I guess when you came to the RIA meeting. What was that particular meeting on? You remember or no?
It was on, I believe it was on appealing the real estate taxes.
Oh, it was a real estate tax appeal.
That's
okay.
right.
So that meeting led you to all of this other stuff?
Right.
Right? Because I guess you got content.
I did, a fabulous content.
Right. Okay, good. So I guess what was the mind shift? I mean, and then you came to a bunch of RIA meetings. Did you come to the 3-day? What happened?
I came to a couple more of the Tinley Park local meetings, and I continued to receive just amazing content. Then I found out about the 3-day, and I went to the 3-day. That was my next step.
Okay. What was your general feeling of the 3-day?
Again, I just knew about the group a little bit, but before I walked in the door, I said, I'm not buying anything from these guys. After about a couple of hours, I said, oh my God, whatever it is they have to sell, I need to buy it, because I knew you were experts, you had the network, you had the resources, you had all of the pieces of the puzzle in place that I wanted to take advantage of.
Right. And what we have said at the 3-day is, from our end, it's an overload, right? It's a religious experience for real estate people. Right? At the 3-day, every single thing that we do, and success after success after success, which is real life examples here, and techniques, right? Every time we show a technique, we say, here are 10 people that are using it here in Chicago, right? And if you think you have odds against you, we will show you people that are older, that are shorter, that are taller, that are better looking or not so better looking, that have achieved more pure on work ethic, right? And there's a massive success that we have, and you're like, oh my God, I got to get on this train.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's really what it was.
That's
right?
what changed my mind.
Okay, so now let's talk about what was step 1 in terms of what did you do with the existing properties that you had?
So I sold 2 of them, in which I had most of the property, most of my money tied up, and then I refinanced one where I was not cash flowing very well at all.
So you sold 2 of them?
Sold 2 of them.
Okay, got it. What was the reason for selling the 2 of them?
I just had way too much money tied up in them, and then I had some personal issues as well that I needed to clean up.
Right, so personal issues, okay. And so you decided, what was your takeaway in terms of, you were obviously at the 3-day, you were a part of Mastery, right? What was your takeaway for you? I mean, we talk about a ton of things, right? But for you, what did you decide to do?
I guess I got the big picture in terms of, this is a real estate business, real estate investing business. It's not just me buying a house here, a house there, hoping that it works out and hoping that 30 years down the road somebody else is going to pay it off and this is going to be my retirement. I can actually build a legitimate real estate investing business.
Okay, so you said, and as we talked about it through the Mastery, right? What you decided was that we're like, okay, any properties that your numbers are screwed up, you got to get rid of. Right? And you actually adopted that philosophy.
I did.
Right? Because our belief is this, that if you have an anchor, let's cut it. right? Let's get rid of it. If you're going to take a loss, let's do it now, immediately,
Right.
and now start building up, because you can build up very quickly.
Right, by
Right.
getting rid of those 2 properties, that was the foundation for building my current real estate success.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And then, so we talk about flips about 25% times.
Right.
We talk about rentals about 75% of times, right? What did you decide to, and maybe we talk about wholesales 5% times, right? I don't know how that adds up, but basically flips we lump to with wholesales, right? Why did you decide to focus on rentals?
I knew from the beginning that I wanted to focus on my real estate rental portfolio because I was in it for the long term. I wanted to invest in real estate to build up my retirement.
Okay. So now, mind you, here's the other thing, right? Besides the support, right, you use from the lenders to the private money to the all the pieces, right,
Right.
that you've utilized them really, really well. Right, and which is, I think I have to give you kudos for that.
Thank you.
Right, I think it's very smart because we just have such a massive group.
Absolutely.
Here locally, right? I mean, in a group of, forget about the RIA, right? RIA 6,000 plus people, but just out of Mastery, about 350 people in 3 years, 3,000 plus properties in less than 3 years. That's a huge number,
Right.
Right? And you use that really well. But besides that, at home, right? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Do you have a huge support system? Do you have somebody that says, "Hey, Mary, I'm in your corner. I'm gung ho about you achieving. Go ahead and do you have that support system?"
Honestly, no. So I'm doing this by myself, and as a matter of fact, my family thinks I'm crazy. They just don't quite understand. They think it's so risky. So no, I'm doing this by myself.
Okay. You have parents,
I have my parents, and I have some siblings.
right? But your siblings are not.
They think I'm crazy.
Okay, got it. Let me ask you this: do they have more cash flow than you?
They have no, they don't have any. They have more income than I do, but they don't have
More cash flow, right?
that I
Without
do.
working.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. So they have income from whatever they do.
Exactly.
Okay. What about your parents?
Oh, they have very, very little. They grew up in a different time. They're much older, so they have very, very little money for retirement.
Okay, is that somebody? Because I've seen you kind of bring that up. Is that somebody you feel responsible for?
I do. So I have 3 other siblings, so there's 4 of us, and I'm the primary, not just caregiver, but I manage their financial affairs. I help them out. So I'm the person that helps them out the most.
Okay, so that's something that weighs on you.
Absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why I got into real estate is I see the financial shape that they're in at their age, and I do not want to be in that same situation.
But you do realize, Mary, so I want to kind of jump forward, right? I want to come back to this point because a lot of times, we kid about it, we laugh about it. Oh, let's buy 10 properties, 20. I mean, these numbers are crazy, right? But when you put real people, right, we're talking about from $400 cash flow to going to zero, right, to clean up your thing, and to build up $4,000 a month in net cash flow. This is not gross. This is net number, right? In 2 years, right? I mean, this is, you realize people work 40 years to have that kind of pension.
I already worked 30 years to this point without getting, anywhere near that. So just these past 2 years has been unbelievable for me.
I mean, 2 years, you're doing it the right way.
Right.
Doing it the way we kind of suggest, right? And, I mean, this is, mind you, on top of your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is on top of you being able to take care of your parents.
Right.
You do realize that, and I'm sure obviously this occurred to you, it's no new revelation, but today, hope it doesn't, but if your parents need something, you can actually contribute.
Absolutely. And that just gives me peace of mind, and it gives them peace of mind as well, that there's somebody there to help them.
Okay. So let me ask you this. From the way you used to think to today, if I asked you what would be a takeaway, and I'll break this down, right? In terms of how you look at real estate, right? As to how you buy, what would be a takeaway on that end?
You have to buy houses that cash flow well. Just buying a house that barely scraping by is not the way to buy properties.
So give me an example of what is barely scraping by, or what you see average people doing, or what did you do at one point?
So your average investor, including myself before I joined the group, was as long as I was making money, I was in the green, I was happy. What happened though after a couple of years of owning this is your insurance goes up, your taxes go up. My green money was actually turning into red. I started shrinking shrinking to the point where I was either not making any money or actually in the red with one or two of my properties.
Got it. So that was one. So very low cash flow,
Very
right?
low.
Number two was people a lot of times have this thing, I need money. I'm going to tie up 20%. My problem is this with people. So guys, if every time you tie up 20%, this might be only $20,000, right? But 20,000. If you're in your 20s, you don't have the 20,000 to tie up on every property. If you're in your 30s, you maybe have one or two of the 20,000, which is 40, 50,000 savings. If you're in your 40s or 50s, maybe you might have 100 or 200,000. How are you going to build a $1 million, $2 million, $3 million portfolio that's going to pay you if that's your strategy? Right? So what was your shift on that end? Because that's a critical shift that people hang around us.
Key. So that was one of the main reasons I got stuck where I was at the 4 properties. I basically ran out of money because, like everybody else, your average buyer, I don't use the term investor, I say buyer, your average buyer was just plunking down that 20%. After a while, you run out of the money. I didn't realize that you could buy properties at such lower prices, rehab them, refinance out, and get all of your money out, and you use that as a jumping point for your next property and your next property.
So you're talking about, some people call it the BRR Method, right? Some people call it all kinds of things, right? And I've heard this said a bunch of different ways. But what I see is a lot of times people buying poor quality properties in areas that are economically challenged, right? And then they're like, well, cash flows $200 a month. I'm like, well, no, that's not what we want. We have some basic standards, right? Number one, we want $400 net minimum cash flow. Minimum, right? Your number is what?
$500 a month.
$500 a month, right? So you want to jump even a higher rope, right? Which is great. Number two, we want equity in the properties.
Absolutely.
What is the equity position you look for after rehab, after everything is done? How much equity do you want in the property?
So my goal is a minimum of $30,000. All of my properties I am actually more at, but that is my benchmark, $30,000 minimum.
$30,000 minimum goal, okay? And when you refinance the property, so let's just put it in, the property you just bought for $60,000, right? You put about $25,000 into it, another $5,000 other carrying costs, let's say. So that's 60 plus 30 total, right? So that's $90,000. What would the property appraise? What is the property worth, first of all, if you flipped it?
If I flipped it and I made it a little bit nicer, easily $170,000.
$170,000 all in. You're in it for 90. Right. So basically, that is a $50,000 home run. Right. So let's just say you're not flipping it in your case. You're going to refinance it.
I am.
Right. Are you going to put some crazy loan on it? Or what is the ideal loan you're going to put on it?
So I'm going to refinance it off for about $100,000. I'd like to pull a little bit of money out of it only because I've got a little bit of room in this one, and I would like to take that extra $10,000 as added to my pool of money I can use for my next property. Okay, got it. But you're not putting $120,000, $130,000, $140,000 loan. No,
you're being very conservative.
That would kill my cash flow.
Right, exactly. Okay, good. So we always talk about 2-5-7. 2 years, 5 properties, get them paid off in 7. Or 2-10-7. 2 years, 10 properties, and get them paid off in 7. Or 2-27. Just depends on how ambitious you are and how many portfolio or how many properties you want to get done. But the goal is that if you take care of real estate for the first 5 years, real estate will take care of you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, you're way ahead of that benchmark even, right? Any thoughts you would add to people that are kind of in your position, are local investors, and go, oh my God, where do I start? Because a lot of people will listen to you say, this is very inspiring. It's like taking a shower, right? You take a shower, you go out, work out, and do something. It doesn't last very long, right? The inspiration and the motivation goes away. What would you say to those people? I mean, if somebody has, let's say, this recording or recording for so many of the successful people that we have that are a part of Chicago RIA group, right? What do you say to them is, they're like, Mary, I was truly inspired by you. What would be the first step? Would it be to go to the RIA? Would it be to keep coming back to the community? What would your suggestion be to them?
My suggestion would be to go to the local RIA. You can do this on your own, but you're not going to be as successful. It's going to take you a long time. You're going to make so many more mistakes. And why do it on your own when you can just mimic and you can plug into people who are already doing this successfully? So you're just building and tapping into that very successful local real estate network.
Great. Mary, I want to, number one, congratulate you from my end, right? And number two, thank you. I think what we should do, right, as a follow-up, as we're recording this, I think what you should do is my old way of investing, right, and my new one. We should do a visual one where you draw that out for people, right? How you used to think, how you think today, and what was the change and why, right? I think if you explain that with numbers and in a visual way, just do that for people, I think it'll be a tremendous value.
I think that would be a good idea because I think that's the way most people are thinking about, I don't say investing, that's the way most people think about buying houses. And then when you switch and you realize, wow, I can do this as an actual investment business, then that's when it becomes, you see the real difference.
Great. I think this has been a great recording, a great interview, and I think a lot of people will benefit tremendously from it.
Thank you, Andrew, and I wish success to everybody.